Alrighty, it looks like our numbers have stabilized, so we'll go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining Zoom Room A for the Making It a Reality Planning for Co-Sheltering in Your Space Part 2 session. My name is Dana Teal, and my dog is my home's animal care liaison, as well as the Co-Sheltering Collaborative Administrator. I'm happy to be here with you today and to be the session's moderator. As a reminder, for best viewing, please select Speaker View in the upper right-hand corner of your Zoom window. This session is dedicated to the nuts and bolts of getting co-sheltering off the ground in your homeless service program. We have two experts with us today to give us real-life examples of programs that are co-sheltering and what lessons they've learned along the way. First, we have Riley Yates, the Animal Welfare Coordinator for Grace Marketplace. Riley graduated with a BS in entomology from Oklahoma State University and shortly after moved to Gainesville to earn her master's degree from the University of Florida. She has always had a passion for helping animals and has worked in a variety of animal shelters and veterinary clinics prior to her time at Grace. In her spare time, she enjoys spending time with her wonderful girlfriend and their 3 rescue pets, Nellie, Riddle, and Paisley. Thank you for being with us, Riley. Whenever you're ready, please begin.
Hi, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes.
Cool. Perfect. So my name is Riley Yates. Thank you so much for that introduction. I am the Animal Welfare Coordinator at Grace Marketplace. We are a animal-friendly, housing-first, and housing-focused emergency shelter, and we are located in Gainesville, Florida. The next slide, please. Our mission at Grace is really simple. It's to end homelessness. Our vision is to make Grace the best choice shelter and service center for our guests, volunteers, and donors to earn widespread community support. Next slide. Some of our milestones. So in 2005, Project Grace was started. So this was the Alachua County Coalition for the Homeless and Hungry's program to end homelessness in Alachua County. They had opened Grace in 2014. They started the 24-hour services here at the facility that I'm in currently. So they saw the need for helping people. Their goal was to assist 100 people in the first month of Grace services being open, and they had 108 meals served on the first day. So obviously there was a whole bunch of people that really needed this service. It was really awesome that it was able to open. In 2020, the Co-Sheltering and Animal Welfare program was created. So this is the program that I run, and now it's 2022 and we're just getting started, but we do have 2 years under our belt of doing this. So we have a little bit of experience. Next slide. The Co-Sheltering and Animal Welfare program complements our regular shelter services by providing animal accommodations for people entering emergency shelter or visiting for services. We provide, on the next slide, food and supply bank, an open air day and night use kennel. We have a climate controlled cat room, an off-leash dog park, 4 pet waste sanitation stations around campus, monthly on-site veterinary care, animal-friendly housing assistance, and counseling and education on animal nutrition, behavior, and responsible ownership. Next slide. So our program, while it's really great and does a lot of really awesome things, we only operate on a $77,000 a year budget. That covers my full-time salary. I work 40 hours a week, covers our liability insurance, our equipment and supplies, and our pet food. And all of that funding is grant funded. It's from the Wagmore Foundation. And then all of our like dog park and kennel area was funded through the PetSmart charities. The only way that we're able to get anything done is with our partner agencies. We work with the Humane Society of North Central Florida, the Home Van Pet Care Project, St. Francis Pet Care, Vocal, Chewy, and Feeding Pets of the Homeless. These are just some of our really amazing partners that I've had the chance to work with so far. The Humane Society of North Central Florida and St. Francis Pet Care cover all of our prevention, health needs, veterinary care for our guests. And then Feeding Pets of the Homeless has a program that covers emergency medical care for anyone experiencing homelessness. And we've been able to utilize their services as well. So that's been really great. Next slide. This is a map of our campus. So we do have a really large campus. So when a lot of people hear that we're animal friendly and they see a picture of our campus, they think there's no way that I can do that in my space. I don't have that much space. Totally understand. We are in a renovated prison. So we have a lot of space, a lot of rooms, lots of different buildings that are spread out, I only have about 7,000 square feet of dedicated pet space. So that includes our open air dog kennel and our dog park. And then it also includes my office and then a 400 square foot cat room and food bank. So our dogs are allowed to stay with their owners while they're here. And then our cats, if they are leash trained, they're definitely welcome to hang out with their owners, which we've had quite a few who have been leash trained and hung out with their owners while they were on campus. But most of our cats prefer to be somewhere kind of off to the side where it's quiet. Their owners come and visit them regularly throughout the day. So we have a dedicated space for that. If an owner leaves campus, can't take their dog with them because, if it's a companion animal, they have access to our open air dog kennel. We have kennels in there for them to utilize. It would be really similar to if they had a kennel space in their apartment or their home. So we don't take care of the animal or anything unless like an emergency happens and someone's, in the hospital or something along those lines. But for the most part, our owners take care of their own pets and they have access to those resources and places to put them when they're not here on campus. Next slide. So here are some stats. Since we started this program in January of 2020, we've had 265 pets receive services from Grace. We've distributed over 5,000 pounds of pet food and litter, over 300 supplies. So that's dog food, bowls, water bowls, cat litter boxes, things like that, any supplies that they would need. We've helped coordinate 62 spay and neuter surgeries, 26 emergency vet visits, and 15 animal welfare interventions. Some of those interventions were, people acquired an animal after entering our program. So it wasn't necessarily an animal that they had when they entered homelessness. So we've helped, get those animals into a home. We have, intervene on cases of abuse or neglect. And so then we get the authorities involved for those instances. And then 35 plus pet owners have ended their homelessness and 97% of them remained housed a year later. So we do track where our guests are a year after we house them. And our general population, it's a lot closer to 80% staying housed a year later. So it's really clear that people with pets are motivated to end their homelessness and motivated to stay out of homelessness after they get into a home because they want to be able to stay with their pets. And these are just some pictures of some of our residents that we've had. We don't have a species requirement or anything. So we've had birds, we've had a bearded dragon, and then obviously lots of dogs and cats. Next slide. So one of the unique parts of our co-sheltering is my position, the animal welfare coordinator. I'm responsible for coordinating all of our animal services, providing oversight of the animal welfare, making sure everybody's being taken care of, ensuring the health and safety of our staff, our guests, and our visitors. So that can include making sure everybody's up to date on their vaccines, helping them get those if they're not. But it also can be making sure that, like our staff who's maybe not dog friendly understands certain behaviors and things that could upset the dog. So like running at them while they're on the leash because they're excited to see them or something. We do a little bit of training and stuff with them. We don't have anything formal, but I do try to help as much as I can. Coming as a animal person, it was super easy for me to hop into this role and take over, but I slowly realized that not everybody is an animal person. But so this quote is from our director of training and outcomes. And he says, as a director running several programs and managing the people side of things, having a person that's solely focused on animal interactions and management of all services related has been huge to our organization in order to provide a higher level of care to our guests and their animals. It's become a crucial part of our organization, and it removes the last part of the 3 highest barriers to entering shelter: people, pets, and property. And then this is my official headshot with one of our former residents, Tiger. Next slide, please. So we do have some expectations of our animals and our owners, and we go over all of these expectations when the animal arrives. All of our animals have to be registered through my office. They are required to be spayed and neutered unless, excuse me, unless owners have made arrangements to do so. We have, in one instance, had a 14-year-old Chihuahua, and the vets were not comfortable with putting her under sedation, so we were able to, waive that requirement for her. Guests are required to take care of their animals, so giving them access to fresh food and water, keeping them free of fleas and other pests, cleaning up after them, physically exercising them and socializing them, keeping them current with any required vaccinations, and we have a zero tolerance on abuse or neglect. If it's seen, it is reported by myself. The state of Florida doesn't have any mandated reporting laws for animal welfare, but here at Grace, we act as if I am a mandated reporter, so it kind of takes the guesswork out of do I call, do I not, just blanket, absolutely, if it's seen, it's reported, and it can be seen by myself or anyone on our staff. If a guest is unable to meet any of these expectations, I make a reasonable effort to provide support in one or more areas. So that could be transporting the animal to and from the vet so that they can get up to date on their vaccines. We have our monthly veterinary clinic here, but because of COVID, that's been on hold. So I've been doing a lot of transporting back and forth. We also have access to like poop bags and things like that for people, and then making sure that they have food and bowls and all that sort of stuff, and giving them prevention for heartworms or fleas and ticks. Next slide, please. We also have expectations that the animal is not aggressive or a nuisance. So that could be growling, posturing, excessive barking, or jumping. While we aren't super strict about all of these, basically the only requirement is that if they display any of these behaviors, the owner takes appropriate action to keep that from happening again. So if that's taking the dog out of the situation that's stressing them out, or giving them more space, moving them to another side of the room, etc., whatever it needs to be. If they aren't taking those appropriate actions, then that would be a violation of our expectations. They must be leashed and under the physical control of their handler or attended to if they're tethered. Owners are expected to clean up and dispose of their animal's waste. They're responsible for these expectations being met, even if their animal is temporarily in the care of someone else. So that could be they have a buddy who is in a bunk nearby who walks their dog for them. Absolutely fine. They're welcome to do that. If their buddy doesn't pick up the dog poop, I don't tell the buddy about it. I just tell the owner. And then the rule that animals must not be acquired once we enter the program. Next slide, please. For our non-violent expectation violations, so any of the non-violent violations that I just spoke of, our first offense is a verbal warning. Second is a review of our expectations with myself. And then the third is we ask the animal to leave for the day. If an individual is asked to remove their animal for the day, they are allowed to return to campus and receive services without their animal. However, if they aren't super polite, don't want to leave with their animals, start to give us a hard time about asking them to leave with their animal, we're no longer asking just the animal to leave, but we can ask the person and the animal to leave together for the rest of the day. We try to avoid that if we can, but it happens. Next slide, please. Our staff members always have the discretion to ask someone to leave for the day if the animal poses a direct threat to the safety or health of others and it's not resolved by a reasonable modification. Some reasonable modifications we've made in the past are giving a basket muzzle to a pup who hasn't been socialized as well as some of the others. So when she's on a walk with her owner, there's less of an instance of there being a problem. If the animal is disruptive or interferes with the program and the participant doesn't take effective action to control it. So like I said, if the animal is barking or causing a problem, being a nuisance or something like that, and the participant doesn't take control, get the animal out of that situation, then staff members can ask them to leave. And then if the animal creates an unsanitary condition, all violent offenses are reported to our animal services, and we place the animal on a 1-year ban from returning to our campus. Like I said, animals are always allowed to return to receive services. I'm sorry, the owners are always allowed to return to receive services, and that includes animal services. So I will never tell an owner that they can't have dog food. If they need dog food, their dog's hungry, I'm going to give them food, even if their animal isn't allowed here on campus. I will go to the front gate and I will give them a bag of food, because I don't think anybody should have their pet go hungry because of, their behavior or their pet's behavior. And we do the same thing for people who are banned. We bring them lunches and things like that. Next slide, please. And this is just a QR code if you are interested in donating to our organization. And the kitty cat here is one of our residents. Her name is Mimi. And then the next slide is my contact information. If anybody is interested in reaching out, if you have any questions, if you'd like to see some of our paperwork or anything that we give to our owners, have them sign, things like that, happy to share that with anybody. Or if you just want to, talk more about co-sheltering here at Grace, I'm happy to discuss that. All righty. And I think that's the end of my presentation. I talked a little fast, but.
That was great. Thank you so much, Riley.
Thank you,
Grace. Yeah, Grace Marketplace really has been a wonderful contributor also to the Co-Sheltering Collaborative and the overall discussion on serving people and animals together in homeless services. And we're happy that we have such a strong voice and program to show that sheltering really can work. People, I'm sure, have a lot they want to ask you, and I did see a bunch of stuff come through the chat related to some specific logistical questions. So you can certainly feel free to pop in there, but we do have a Q&A session at the end. If people aren't able to follow along in the chat, maybe we can just review them then as well. So if you have questions along the way, throw them in the chat, and we do have a Q&A section at the end. Presenting next, we have Jovan Iglesias from Bay Area Community Services. Jovan has been working with unsheltered individuals and families, as well as those with mental health needs, for 20 years. Jovan has facilitated, designed, and implemented operations in dozens of housing and behavioral health programs, including navigation centers and interim housing models. Operations in his stewardship are rooted in harm reduction, trauma-informed, and housing-first principles. Thank you for joining us, Jovan. And when you're ready, please begin, and your slides will be shared.
Great, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here. I do think that this is Bak's first time in attendance to this conference, and we just really appreciate being here. I'm going to share with you all today a little bit about our co-sheltering operations at the Share Center, which is our navigation center operating in the city of Salinas in collaboration with the County of Monterey in California. Next slide, please. Whoa, it looks like it's going pretty quick. There we go. I'm going to talk a little bit about our organization, then I'll get into the general operations, and I will share with you a little bit about the support that we received in the community and talk more about how we provide our services and connections in the program. Next slide, please. So before I get into the Share Center, what I'd like to acknowledge is that our organization has been around for nearly 70 years, and we've served more than 100,000 people over that time. We originally started out in the Bay Area in California, mostly on the East Bay side in Oakland. And in that time, since we've opened up a number of semi-congregate and congregate housing, residential housing programs all across the Bay Area, and as far south as Salinas, California as well. We have a long experience and have a long program that operates with a co-sheltering model. In our non-congregate, in our non-congregate housing settings, we have long supported our animal family members joining our residents, and we've provided those services. However, at the Salinas Navigation Center, which is called the Share Center, this was our first time working closely with with two municipal and county agencies that really, that really got it from the get-go, and it made working in collaboration and designing a space and that we stepped into so easy, so supportive, and it really just created a real natural marriage for this level of support of all of our family members, all the families that we serve. Our organization mission is a very succinct one. It's to lift underserved individuals and their families by doing whatever it takes. And we have a vision of the world where all of us can live in a healthy and safe and engaged way with each other. This is a picture of the Share Center from the outside. And next slide, please. The program was opened just last year, so the program is less than a year old. It's close to about 9 months old. Opened in July of last year with the support of the City of Salinas and Monterey County, who did a lot of the groundwork ahead of BACS coming in. And again, I just want to acknowledge our partners there. A very long and arduous process with that community, gathering support, gathering the finances, and making a really unique, one of its kind collaboration between city and county to open up a jointly funded, jointly created facility specifically designed for the purpose of serving their community in a co-sheltering with a co-sheltering ethos behind it. Prior to BACS being awarded the contract, the County of Monterey had been awarded a pet assistance and support program grant from the state of California, which overall, I believe, was able to grant about $10 million in funding across the state for pet assistance and support services. Specifically earmarked for the Share Center was about nearly $100,000 just for the Share Center to support with pet assistance and support. This funding can be used from everything from facilities to the gathering of resources, the consulting fees, you name it, whatever is necessary to support our unsheltered individuals and community members who have pets and non-human family members to be a part of their co-sheltering and their programming. So as part of our overall nearly $3 million budget of this program, we were able to pull in that additional $100,000 in resources that was on top of just the facilities design. The next slide, please. So currently, as of earlier this week, the program has 97 individuals. 50 of those are individual unsheltered folks, and 47 of those individuals belong to families. Our current pet census is 12 animals in total. We have 10 dogs, 1 cat, and 1 snake. We've had as many as 18 animals at any given time. And so it fluctuates as folks exit the program and new community members join us. We have a staff of 20, include residential counselors who are the backbone of the program. We have care coordinators who support our individuals to find permanent housing in the community, permanent and affordable housing in the community. We have an employment coordinator, a housing locator whose job it is to secure pools of landlords and properties that will work with the folks that we serve. And then we have a manager and a property supervisor as well. Between our property supervisor and our residential counselors, they are the ones who manage the milieu of our residents and animals, and are trained, and I'll go into that in just a moment, with the operations of our animal support services. Since July 1st of last year, we've housed 34 persons, 18 individuals, and 5 families. Of those 5 families, 4 of them had pets with their families. So we're really proud of our ability to get folks permanently placed and secure housing that includes their animal family members. Next slide, please. So in designing and building the Share Center, it was really important for us to really build and draw in community connections. BACS is not so foolhardy to think that we can do this stuff alone. That integrated in our philosophy of care is a true wraparound model, which if implemented to its fullest really means that you pulling in all of any stakeholder who is invested in any individual or any community's care. And in this regard, with regards to our animal family members, it was really important for us to draw on the community and draw on those stakeholders to build a program that was suitable and humane for all the families and all the individuals that would be co-sheltering at the Share Center. And in doing so, we partnered with an organization called the Birch Bark Foundation, who I will sing their praises to no end. They have been so instrumental in supporting the development of our processes at the Share Center, training staff, educating our residents, and really building a really positive connection to the community with regards to our animal care. The next phase of that implementation was really about education and training. And so the training aspect of it is really around our staff, right? Certainly as an organization, we've had a long history of supporting both support animals and animal family members in a co-sheltering way. The design of the Share Center, because of its open layout and its semi-congregate setting, was a new foray for us in terms of how to implement it. And so we really looked as we were onboarding people to create a training protocol to support them, to support the families at the site in obtaining their housing goals, and at the same time living in a communal setting where animals are present. Education, in the sense that many of the folks that we were admitting into the program, enrolling into the program, obviously have a lot of knowledge and familiarity with their family, with their pet family members, and at the same time having education available, information available for the care of their pets was extremely important for both their own comfort in the site and for the comfort of those who perhaps did not have pet family members as well. And then lastly, it's really about a constant engagement and relationship building process, which at the heart of everything that we do is really rooted about harm reduction. And for those of you who are familiar or unfamiliar with harm reduction, if you strip away everything behind that, all the axioms, all the general principles around harm reduction, at the heart of it is about engagement and relationships, and how we are where people need us at the time that they need us, with great consistency, with everything in service to that relationship, and that's including our animal family members. Next slide, please. So we built starting with our partnership with the Birch Bark Foundation. From there, we were able to build community relationships with the SPCA of Monterey County and Peace of Mind Dog Rescue, who've been really great at co-locating at the site and providing services at the site for our residents. They help us to create a welcoming bags and kits for those families that include animals, to creating and having regular spay and neuter appointments for our new residents who are coming to intake, creating a vaccination schedule, regular check-ins with veterinarians, especially for those who are those formerly unsheltered coming into the center who have not previously had access to pet care or animal care. Regular grooming, behavior training and education, kennel training, financial assistance, and also transportation assistance. All of this is available on site at the center. And with our collaboration at Birch Bark, we have regular presence of consultants and partners who are there to give that specific and share that specific information, share that specific training to all of the residents at the Share Center. Additionally, they also act as ongoing training and support for our staff who are regularly attentive to the milieu on a 24/7 basis, right? So these programs, just because we're the clock strikes 5 o'clock on a Friday doesn't mean that we stop our services. We're working 24/7. We have staff on site 24/7. And just like you and I are breathing here, breathing and living here, so are the animals breathing and living at the shelter. And so there's a real cognizance of being supportive 24/7 to our animal family members. So the Birch Bark Foundation was really essential in also helping us to create an intake process that was animal friendly and animal conscious, including creating an addendum to our program agreements that would include the agreements around living with and co-sheltering with animals and with folks who and families who perhaps don't have animal family members, and what that means, including, I think, what you heard Riley share in her presentation as well. You know, the maintenance of food and water, the availability and access to those resources, making sure that the animal regularly exercises, making sure that the animals, if they do not have shots or vaccinations when they come in, that there is going to be the timely scheduling of that so that they come in. One thing I'll say about that is what was really important for us is to make sure that in our environment and in our services across the many different jurisdictions that we provide them, is that we have a very low barrier access. And so that even if someone is coming with an animal who does not have the necessary vaccinations or is not registered or any of those things that would otherwise be a barrier to service, we look to remove them upon entry. And so if they don't have registration, what can we do to get them registered right away? If they don't have vaccinations, if they don't have a regular veterinarian or a regular pet care, healthcare, how do we do that immediately so that that's not a barrier to getting that family into the navigation center for supportive services right away? And that's an extremely important and vital piece of our philosophy of care as an organization. You know, other rules include, you know, making sure that when they are inside the navigation center that the animals are leashed, unless that they are in the cohabitated rooms. They're sort of like these modules that each of the families live in. In those modules, the animals, if appropriately trained or from a behavior standpoint are able to do that, they can unleash them. We have no policy against any type of animal. It really our agreements are rooted around behavior and the behavior management of that animal. So we have snakes, we have cats, we've had birds before. And you know, as long as the animal can be cared for and can be observed and whatnot, then we can certainly support that family to coexist together. And then lastly, of course, making sure that the animal is kept hygienic and that the animal itself is tended to so that the rest of the site can be hygienic, meaning managing the excrement and what have you. Next slide, please. So our facility has an outdoor but roofed kennel. You can see that there on the right. The kennel has 8 spaces for animals, and it's regularly maintained by our site supervisor. We have an adjoining dog park right there. You can see one of our family members taking a gallop through the adjoining dog park on the property. The dog park, which is so fundamental to the health and happiness of our animal family members, we're actually in the process of upgrading it right now. We're using a healthy portion of that $100,000 PAWS grant currently to upgrade the park. So hopefully the next time we do this presentation, we'll have some more slides about the new dog park and you know, I hope to present you all something that's a little bit more fancy. We also have one catio, which is our cat patio on the facility. Unfortunately, you can't see it in this image of the kennel, but it's on the other side of that adjoining wall. Again, we've had a number of cats there, some of them leash trained as well, who really enjoy that space. Next slide, please. So this is actually a thank you letter. It's kind of hard to read on the screen, so I also provided it typed out. This is from one of the folks who exited our program, and I'll just read it in case it's too small for folks. Quote, I'm very thankful and grateful for everything that the center and all the staff have done for my very special and very much loved dog, 38. 38 is the name of the dog. When 38 and I first taught here, she was still, and still is the very first dog to start living here at the center. 38 was given her own kennel and doghouse, but because the center staff are so understanding and they love 38, she has not had to sleep in that cold kennel, except for the first 3 nights. 38 is treated like a person by the center staff and actually really loved by a couple. 38 special, and I would like to say bark, bark, and thank you very much, center staff, for helping me with my daughter dog. You are the best, 38 said so. This person and their dog was successfully and permanently housed in a setting that was amenable to having family animal friends. And so, you know, this is something that we, you know, it's very special for us, and it's very heartwarming to be able to provide these services and have them happen successfully. Our organization really strives to shoot for the moon here, and our goal is to successfully and permanently house 80% of our residents. And typically we do hover around that range, including those who have animal family members as well. Last thing I'll say with regards to the engagement practices, our program agreements are really designed, again, around harm reduction, around engagement, around meeting folks where they are at, and it includes how we manage behavior. And so on the occasion, and we have had situations certainly where behavior of animals has been an issue from time to time, we really look to the engagement and relationship building, both with the residents and their pets as part of the process. And so typically our stepwise approach is a relationship building process. If it needs to escalate, then we look towards a mediation. If it does not resolve itself by that point, through the mediative process, then we do initiate a program warning, and then ultimately we will then do a safety evaluation and determine if the animal needs to spend some time away from the center or is eligible to come back. We do take a very case-by-case approach to it, you know, acknowledging that every animal, every situation is different. And ultimately, at the core of it is how do we foundationally support what is needed through that relationship process. Of course, violent offenses do get reported to our local animal services, and if the offense is egregious enough, unfortunately, that may constitute the removal of the animal from the site. Again, we look to problem solve those issues. If the animal can't be on the site, we want to ensure that that animal is safely placed somewhere and supported, and so that is our first objective if that scenario should arise. Next slide, please. This is our wonderful staff who support the center, support our animals. And again, really great team, as you can see from the thank you letter that we got. And that is my presentation. Happy to be here, and looking forward to the questions.
Great. Thank you so much, Jovan. Congratulations on the opening of the Bay Area Community Services Share Center. The whatever it takes model is something we really uphold and admire at My Dog is My Home. We're really looking forward to following Share and hearing about all of your successes in Salif's community, and certainly seeing those renovation upgrades for your dog park. That'll be really exciting. Alrighty, now we do have some time for some Q&A. If you have not already, you do have plenty of time to put some comments or questions in the chat box, and our speakers can respond. I'll start by reading out a couple. This one is directed to both of our speakers, so Jovan and Wiley. Was there any resistance among leadership and/or staff about co-sheltering? I'm concerned that some shelter contractors who are nonprofits that are already overburdened and understaffed might not be receptive to implementing co-sheltering, even if they support the values behind the idea.
So I'm happy to respond to that, at least from our perspective. There wasn't a whole lot of, so how our kind of program started was we had people who were reluctant to go into shelter because they had a pet. So we had a significant portion of individuals who we knew we could house, we knew we could help them, and they were reluctant to receive services because at the time the only option was to surrender their pet in order to, live in our emergency housing facility. So they opted to live in a tent right outside. And so when that area closed, it was known as Dignity Village. When Dignity Village closed, Grace as a whole decided, that they can't just say, sorry, we're closing the area that you live in. You don't have any help because you have a pet. So they, saw the need, realized that there was enough people who would utilize the services if they had a pet. And so then that's where our co-sheltering program was born. So it kind of started with our leadership because they saw the need for it. So we didn't have a whole lot of kickback on getting it started. But I definitely understand the concern. I think a lot of the concern comes from if I allow animals, everybody's going to have an animal. There's going to be 1 million animals in my shelter. What am I going to do? But we have 13 right now. We have 11 dogs and 2 cats. So, I mean, for a shelter that sleeps 120, that's really not that many. So it's really not as big of a requirement for shelters than I think it sounds like when they first hear about it.
Great.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
Thanks. Yeah, thank you for that, Riley. I would agree. I mean, I have to say, one of the benefits of operating the majority of our services in the Bay Area and in California is that we tend to be around a lot of progressives. And so there's, at least in the Bay Area, there's been a history of more support around co-sheltering. Not always, and I definitely won't make that a blanket statement, but it certainly a lot of the communities there has been less resistance to that. Specifically in our East Bay programs, where they're not congregate setting navigation and rapid rehousing programs. Usually it's a co-sheltering model where there's individuals who are sharing a room with maybe 1 or 2 other people at most. The challenge in those circumstances has been pairing, right? Pairing the residents with each other. So if we're bringing in someone who has a pet or an animal family member, then our staff and our policies are really geared towards this, is then finding the right pairing within the premises for that animal and that new participant to cohabitate a space that is safe and welcoming in terms of the pairing. Our side is safe and welcoming. And we just want to make sure that you're going to be living with someone who has a like-minded and share of love, or at least respect for animals. And that doesn't always work out. And so what makes it challenging in those circumstances is like when bed space becomes limited, or when we're at our fullest, and the beds that are full are open are folks that maybe don't want to live with an animal, or maybe have an allergy, then that makes it sort of challenging. And the real challenge for our staff is then like, what do we do? You know, we're not the agency who says no a lot, and so our then recourse there is to then problem solve, to find that person a place to be until they can bring them in. With regards to the share center, in response to that specific question about the resistance and the challenges around that, we've had a real unique circumstance in that even prior to our organization being awarded the contract for the operations of this site, the city of Salinas and Monterey County had the foresight to write a proposal and create the idea of a center that would be co-sheltered from the onset. And so the design of the building, its construction from the onset was with that specific intent in mind, to ensure, again, a low barrier access point for folks coming out of unshelteredness or houselessness. And one of those removals of barriers was making it totally okay for bringing in your animal family member to a part of that. So going into the project, as BACS was awarded it was from the onset, we knew that we were building a program that was going to be a key objective. And so the hiring practices, the policies and procedures, all of that as it was being developed prior to opening was integrated with that. And so with that intention. And so day one, the doors open, our staff were already trained with that intention. So there was no pushback. We didn't really experience that pushback. And so I find ourselves really fortunate in that, because we had the support early on to be able to do that. And it's probably something we would have done anyway. I think it's what drew us and attracted us to the project from the get-go, because it seemed like, okay, this program's framing from the onset was in line with our own philosophical values about the care. So I think that that's really important for administrators to think about, is like, how do you align yourself with the contracts that you're provided? How do you align yourself with the funders that you're provided, to be able to provide a vision of the care that you see fit? It's a lot harder to make a 180-degree pivot when you're a long-standing program in operations with a whole history of doing things one way versus another. I'm not saying it can't be done, but it's the intentionality around, you know, turning that Titanic is a bit more challenging and daunting.
That's amazing. We're just in the chat. I would love to read that proposal that your city put together. That's so great that you had that support from the get-go. And someone asked in the chat about how you both got started on the conversation of co-sheltering, and in your previous answers, you just both answered that wonderfully. Thank you so much. There's some comments about educating against fear. There is one specific, some comments in there about worrying about dog bites, maybe other liability issues that are a common concern in co-sheltering. Can either of you speak to whether that has been a reality that you've had to come up against? Any significant serious issues related to that?
Riley, do you want to respond first, and I'm happy to follow up?
Yeah, so sorry, my phone was ringing and I lost my whole train of thought. This is about like the liability and stuff like that. So the liability on our end only covers my position. We don't have any expectation that the rest of our staff is going to be handling animals. They can choose to handle and take care of animals if they want to, but the expectation is that the owner is going to do all of that. So we don't have any specific like liability insurance for like our staff members beyond myself. I wish we had, you know, like really great staff that would be able to help with animals and things like that. I know we have a lot of staff members that want to be a part of these animals' lives because they're animal people and they love them and they're around them all the time. But we don't have that expectation for our staff.
So our organization does have liability insurance for all of our staffing. That includes, any of the activities that are work related on the site or for the purposes of the job. So in this case, it would include, managing the milieu or the activities that happen in the milieu, including attention to these animals. So in that regard, I think we are observant of that potential risk, and I think it's interesting to let me back up a little bit. It's interesting to think about risk and risk management, right? Because on the one side, I think many of us go straight towards like, how do we protect that liability, right? Like, how do we ensure that we're protected against the worst case scenario? And as the chief of program operations, believe you me, like I'm thinking about risk management every day, all day long. And as long as I've done this work, one of the things that I think I've come more and more closer to in the work is that the real mitigation of risk management comes in the relationship. And this is why I'm such a stalwart about harm reduction, because at the end of the day, the way that we can best manage risk is if we know about what's going on and if we are familiar with what's happening in the center. The way that we do that is by building relationships with the residents that are there, and in this case, building the relationships with the animals that come in, right? That is the best way that we mitigate risk. And so to ensure that is to not lean so hard on protection to the point that we are afraid of those relationships or afraid of engaging, because it might cause, or the end result of that might, the outcome might be the worst case scenario, but actually that we have to be counterintuitive to that, and that is engage, right? Because the more we know, the better we have those relationships, the more likely that we are to see and experience those yellow flags when things might be just headed in the wrong direction, and then be able to have a conversation about it or make whatever necessary adjustments that we can do to problem solve or mediate or manage that situation. If we don't have those relationships, and we do take a hands-off approach, or we stand back and we really observe really the safety through distance, right? Then what we actually are creating is a much more risky and dangerous situation, because we don't know what we don't know, right? So it's really about building infrastructure and program agreements and program management structures that really uphold the institutions around engagement with the people that we serve and the animals that we serve, right? And so what I'm talking about there is not just me having a supervision conversation with my direct staff. While that's part of it as well, it's also about how do you have reliable and consistent data about how our engagement looks, right? And what it yields towards the end. So, and that's all part of a systematic risk management system.
That's such a great message to share with everybody, and to close out our session. Of course, building relationships and really getting to know who's in your program and what's going on. It's so inspiring. And we're just about out of time. So thank you both for our wonderful panelists for joining the conference and for your critical work each and every day. And thank you for the audience for your participation and for being here. Everyone, feel free to return to the main Zoom room, and we will be hearing our last storytelling session of the day. I'll see you there.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you all.